Hi, everybody. Welcome to Amigos. I'm John.
And I'm Aaron.
And today, Aaron, the summer of arcade rolls on with Do Run Run. Now, Aaron, in Japan, the name of this game is Super Perot.
Yeah,
Pierrot. Do you know what a Perot is?
it's a clown, right?
Well, you would think that, but it turns out that clowns and Perots are different sorts of actors. They have different roles they play. And the only thing that they share in common is their white face. So my whole life, I've been thinking Mr. Do's a clown, and he's actually a Perot. And a Perot is somebody that has he's very wistful. He's not zany or goofy. He doesn't tell jokes. He's just kind of a melancholy creature that looks at the moon and sighs a whole bunch. How does
So it's
that
like
make you
a
feel?
it's like the Jerry Lewis clown there. The
Oh, I don't
sad,
know. I don't know if we
the
want to go
sad
there.
clown.
It's because that film was actually called The Day the Clown Cried.
Who was the what's the famous stage play with the opera? I should see with the singing clown. You know what I'm talking about? Help me out here, Bo. Somebody help me out
The
here.
singing, oh, that's Pagliacci.
Pagliacci, that's
Hmm.
it. So, I mean, he wasn't like a wacky clown. He was the least wacky clown ever. I don't like to think of Mr. Do like that, if I'm honest. If you look at the way he's presented uh ads and on the marquees and stuff, he doesn't look like a melancholy clown. He looks like he's pretty cool, happy,
You
fun,
know,
fun loving.
I'm not prepared to believe. I think that it's possible that the good people at Universal over in Japan, they do not know the difference between a Perot and a clown, and
Hmm.
they were just like, "Hey, Perot sounds kind of cool. We're gonna go with that." Because here, let's be real here. I
Okay.
mean, you don't see a lot of Perot action. The sad, wistful looking at the moon, and also tossing a big ball around. Being wacky. So I'm gonna go with the fact that he's a straight up clown, and this was just an attempt for the Japanese to be artistic.
When I hear Perot, I think about the old guy that ran for president all those years ago with
Ross Perot.
with the admiral. I believe was his vice president. That guy, they should work the admiral into the actual games. That'd be fun.
Is Ross Perot still living?
No, oh gosh, no. He passed away a
Okay,
while back. Yeah,
okay,
he was
okay.
pretty old back
I
then.
was gonna say because he was, but you never know with people like that. Like Grandpa Jones is still alive.
No, Grandpa Jones, you're
Yeah,
kidding me.
I'm pretty sure he's still alive.
I'm I would be baffled. He would be the youngest grandpa I ever saw back when I was a kid because he was an old man. That stuns me. I can't believe that.
Listen, we
That
might leave
stunned
that one
me.
up to the mystery. Let's
Yeah.
just at least.
That might not be the worst idea on that one, Bode. But when it comes to Mr. Do, I can see where you'd be melancholy or even a little sad, given his antics. Where all these games, he's continuously hassled by monsters nonstop. They chase him through the gardens, they chase him through the castles, they chase him underground, they chase him up on roller coasters. He's always getting chased. It would bring you down a little bit.
Speaking of bringing it down, let's talk about Do Run Run.
Nice
All right,
little
Aaron.
love theme there. I like that.
Yeah, I love the music from
Yeah.
good old Do Run Run. So again, this was released in 1984 by Universal. 1984, big year in video games. A lot of the games in Summer of Arcade this year have come from 1984.
Yeah.
Just to give you an example of some of the ones that we're not covering this year, Kung Fu Master released in 1984,
Great.
Punch Out, and
Great.
Karate Champ.
All great. All
Yeah,
those great.
yeah. So it's to me, this is a year where I have a theory. Okay,
Okay.
this has never been proven, but it has been talked about. The reason why 1984 is the greatest year in the golden era, the golden age of arcade games, is because we had that big video game crash in 1983, and a lot of games that were slated for release in 1983 either just got canceled because they knew they were not going to be any good, or the really good releases were purposefully held back until 1984 to kind of let consumer sentiment towards video games kind of get on the upside again. What do you think about that?
Well, I mean, it's not like it's not like there were a ton of duds in '83, as I recall. I mean, I think they just kept bringing out great games. You know,
Mm.
I was thinking about the video game crash. Of course, we all know the routine that it didn't hit Europe or whatever. That's fine, but it did hit the States. I mean, we were there. But I think of it more of I think of the video game crash more as a home thing than an arcade thing, because I do remember going to arcades and they were still rocking and rolling. So I don't know how
Hmm.
much they were affected by it. But clearly they not too much, because they released tons of great stuff in those years. So
Yeah,
and then
yeah,
and well on after they kept it coming. So I guess it wasn't too detrimental to them.
yeah, yeah. Now, the development team in this game, this is Kazutoshi Ueda. He is the series creator of the Mr. Do series. He also worked on Ladybug and Bomb Jack, according to the Gaming Gate site. Not Gamers Gate. That's a whole different
You
thing.
love all those games, don't
Yeah,
you? Those are this
especially
guy's your
Ladybug.
guy. Yeah.
Ladybug is my favorite sort of like Pac-Man clone ever. A lot of these Japanese development teams, especially back in the day, they weren't forthcoming with development credits. A lot of times people would have pseudonyms and stuff like that. So he's the only person that I was able to find who was tangentially related. Inside the cabinet here, you've got a CPU stack. You've got three Zilog Z80s, each running at 4 megahertz. The first one runs the main logic, the second one runs the video, and the third runs the input output timing. Then you have a custom sound chip, a TI sound chip that feeds a 6x9 speaker. So the 6x9 speaker, the mono 6x9 speaker, was kind of the standard in the early 80s. It would be
Yeah.
interesting to know, and I think that somebody has mentioned this to us. Do you remember what the first stereo sound video game was?
I think it was Gyrus, wasn't it? I
Okay, you
could
might be
be
right.
crazy, but I think it was Gyrus.
Yeah, yeah,
Of course it had the sound to pull that off. It was double awesome.
yeah.
But I mean I could be wrong. But and of course, sometimes when you hear this is the first of that and that's first, that may be the popular opinion, not necessarily the actual. You never know with all the stuff that gets released in Japan. Who knows? I'm sure it was a Japanese game, so who really knows? But that's the one I think is the popular choice.
Right, right. And finally, you have a 19-inch CRT, typical CRT screen, running at a resolution of 240 by 192. This game features a 64 color palette, so a lot of colors in
Yeah,
Do Run Run. And this game has a four-way stick plus the button for letting the ball fly.
yeah.
Um, so what do you do in Mr. Do? Okay, well, this is a game that there are multiple paths to victory, which I love. This game starts out with a bunch of different balls on the ground, scattered about the level, just like Pac-Man, except you're in a maze that has no walls. You have full freedom of movement. Okay, and your job is Mr. Do. One of your jobs is to collect the dots. If you collect the dots, you beat the level. Okay, but when you collect dots, you leave a trail behind you, kind of like Amidar or Kicks or something like that. And as you complete squares on the playfield, if you surround the dots upgrade to other symbols, which increase them in points. So they go from dots to cherries to apples to lemons to pineapples. I think pineapple is the biggest
Yeah.
point thing. And so you can keep surrounding these dots with lines, with squares, and this is a classic example of a great point press game. While you're doing that, however, you are not unmolested. There are monsters that roam about. There are kind of walking monsters. I'm not exactly sure what you'd call the non-snake monsters. They kind of look like I don't know. What would you say? They look like watermelons with like a quarter of them cut out.
Or like clams or something. And
Yeah.
they sometimes they turn into stuff that looks like the hard. The stuff the bad guys in this are very similar to the bad guys in Mr. Deuce Castle.
Mhm.
That they have a lot in common. So they could be basically the same sort of guys. Just these
Right.
like weird guys. But
Yeah. So
they
you,
do
you
have
you've got
personality.
you've got your bivalves and you've got your snakes. That's
Yeah.
what you've got.
There you
And,
go.
and
Fair
so
enough.
these guys are running around. They're trying to get you. The snakes have an ability to charge up and kind of beam across the screen at a high rate of speed. So you got
I
to be
hate
on the
that
lookout for
ability.
those guys.
Yeah, you do.
Um, your offensive weapon in Mr. Do, just like in every Mr. Do game, is the old ball. Except in Castle, there is no ball, right? It's just the
You got the
hammer.
hammer,
You got
yeah.
the hammer. But in all the other games, you've got the ball. And in this ball, it will ricochet off of the walls. The more it ricochets before it hits an enemy, you can get a multiplier. So you can get up to 3,000 points for every enemy that you hit. But if you try and hit the snake enemy when he's in his like balled up beam mode, it will ricochet off the snake and start going in the other direction. So you got to be on the
Yeah.
lookout for that.
Yeah, it does.
The other way that you can beat a level is if you destroy all the enemies. If you kill all the enemies on a level, you can leave as many dots as you want, and the level will end, and you'll go on to the next level. This game is presented in kind of a pseudo 3D perspective. It's not really isometric. I guess it could be. A lot of the stuff we found out, I think, when we were doing our Crystal Castles episode, a lot of the stuff we call isometric is not really isometric, but it's got that perspective. Um, and so you are climbing up and down different levels of height, and that basically it gives you an opportunity to either escape from enemies who have to climb up the levels, or it will actually slow you down if you're being chased. So you got to be aware of that. And the final offensive weapon that you have is the log push. When you push, there are these logs that are set up and they've got wedges under them, and on each level, and you can remove the wedge by kind of walking over it, and the log will fall down vertically on the screen and crush all of the enemies below it. So if you can get all the enemies gathered below the log, you can get a big score multiplier that way too. Of course, Aaron, this would not be a universal game if you didn't get a chance to spell extra. And when you spell extra in this game, there's two ways to do it. Again, multiple ways to do everything. I love it. You either have once in a while, monsters will just randomly appear from the extra, and they'll have their bodies will be the letter inside of it, or there will be a flashing rotating extra square on the board. When you hit that, you get to choose what letter emerges, but there's also a train of enemies that comes down off the screen, and if you hit the letter, the train is all destroyed. So it's kind of a neat way to rack up some points and get to choose what letter of extra you need to spell. It's not quite as random as in some of the other games. So that's a neat thing too. Aside from that, this is a simple high score game. I do not know how many boards total there are. That seems like a thing I probably should have researched, but I did not. But I would say there's 5 or 6 boards, and they tend to then they'll just loop again and again and again. Um, this game is like I said, it was this is a lot of times people will say this is because of its perspective. There's one of the contemporary reviews I read, they called it Pac-Man meets Kicks with a dash of Congo Bongo. I don't think that's the worst. That's not the worst comparison, because it does have that Congo Bongo perspective. Aaron, how would you describe this game?
Well, I mean, it's nothing like Congo Bongo except for the levels. That's
Perspective,
really the
yeah.
only. That's the only. And Congo Bongo is also isometric, so at least most of it. So this is like if you look straight down at and the hills had a little slant as they went up. It's actually whatever it is, it's fine. Like in terms of they did a good job. You know the elevations. I don't have any problems getting around. So I would say that's fine. The kicks part again. I mean, yeah, I guess sorta, but really, it's not nothing to do with kicks either, does it? I mean, it's not like if you're loop the enemies, they die or anything. It's just that that's how you get the point stuff. You could go around this game and not care about the line you're putting out and just play to kill, and you would never make a difference. So,
Well, it would
it's
make a significant difference in your score.
oh yeah, in
But
your score, sure.
but
But
yeah,
I
you
mean,
you do not have to interact with the quote unquote Pac-Man maze part of this game at all.
right. If and so this game, I would say, is one of those rare games. Really, the game I would associate it with most was the original Mr. Do. This is more like an actual sequel to the original Mr. Do than any of the other Mr. Do games, in my
Yeah.
opinion.
Yeah, I agree.
Because the way the extra guys come out, the way it looks, the color palette, the fact that you've got the ball again, the monsters, it's very similar. It's like if you're playing the old Mr. Do, except you're not going underground, you're staying above ground and playing. And it might be something like this. So, and because we both love Mr. Do,
Mhm.
so no problems there. But it's a real tough game to put in a to categorize. It's its own game, I would say.
Yeah. This game, although is very unique, is not a very popular game. This game was mostly released as a upgrade kit for other Universal titles. The Universal cabinets were made for easy swapping, and but there are, according to this site that I found called rowtheblog.com, which I'm sure is 100% correct.
Seems legit.
There were a few hundred factory upright machines made that were not just conversion kits.
Really.
So I have never seen one before. I don't know that no, I've definitely seen a do run in the wild before because I played one at Galloping Ghost. But
Yeah.
and I wouldn't, to be honest with you, I wouldn't know if it was an original or not because
Yeah.
the conversion kit gives you everything you need to make it look like a new game. So
I did notice that when I was looking for a bezel for this, one was not on the offering, and
mhm.
so all they had was like an instruction card. So when that happens, a lot of times you are upgrading. And now this is a horizontal game, and the original Mission Do was a vertical game, as I recall. Help me
Yeah,
out here, but if I'm
that's
wrong.
right. You're right.
And so, and Mission Do's Castle was a vertical game.
Mhm.
So one would wonder which Universal machines this was put out to upgrade from. It'd be interesting to know what they were trying
Yeah,
to
and
upgrade from.
I've never really spent a lot of time inside a Universal cab to see how easy it is because
I've never been in there.
some cabs are made to facilitate either vertical or horizontal oriented games. You basically just go in there and you physically turn the monitor sideways and sit it back down in its frame. So
Right.
I don't know if like I said, I don't know how.
Usually for conversions, though, they are converting. That's why this game. It's funny the fact that it's a horizontal game because they could have made this a vert. I think if they wanted to.
Yeah,
So it's something that it'd be fun to kind of look into to see what they had out that year, and maybe they were looking for because they thought, okay, Mr. Do's our go-to. Because I'm pretty sure Mr. Do's Castle did a lot of conversions up from Mr. Do, for example. So that I think Mr. Do was one of their favorite things to do conversions to, because they knew people liked the franchise. But that's
right.
just I'm just thinking out loud there.
Well, I think that they also had a really good idea for a game. This is one of these games. There's nothing else quite like it out there, and we were still.
That's true.
This is why 1984 was such a great year because you have progressed. Technology has progressed far enough along that you can really dive into a lot of different types of games, and they can all look different. We've gotten beyond the space shooter and the racing game, and that's where you had Tapper 1984. It's totally unique sort of game. Domino Man, another 1984 release. You've got all of these great games that are all trying to appeal to the mass market. They haven't quite gotten to the point where they realize that teenage boys are the only people that are coming to arcades yet. And so they're still trying to make these games kind of have a cross gender, cross age appeal. And that's what makes this, 1983 through 1985. It's such a special time before you start to hit sort of the skids in 86, 87, 88.
I think you're
Um,
right. And I mean, you got to think this is back when more adults, more women were coming to arcades.
yeah.
And I think a lot of these companies try to, now I don't want to say pride themselves, but maybe a little, but they try to set themselves apart by not just being a derivative. I mean, think about it. Here's a game based on Mr. Do. They could have put out Mr. Do 2, right?
hmm
It would not have been hard to do,
Right.
But look at the other just as an example, look at like stuff like Dig Dug 2 or Joust 2. Games coming off of big successful games, and they were all totally bonkers. It
Yeah.
didn't always work,
hmm
but they did not just want to make a sequel. They wanted to make something totally different. Sometimes they
Exactly.
failed, sometimes they didn't.
This game is, judging by its world record, or its world record presence on Twin Galaxies, it's not a very popular point game. There are only 2 verified scores on Twin Galaxies, if you can believe it.
You should get in
Now,
there, Boat.
well, part of the problem is that you have to have for Twin Galaxies, you got to have the real. There's tons of MAME records on there, but on
Oh, okay.
actual real machines. And
Yeah.
so, but I wouldn't. I think listen, who's kidding who? I'm not gonna be anywhere close to the top score, but I think I'm good enough that I could get on like the top 50, or
Did
whatever.
you play this when we were at Chicago? Did they
Yeah,
have
yeah.
this
I played
game?
this. I played this at Galloping Goose. I had to. It's my favorite arcade
Do you
game.
recall the kind of cabinet it was in? Did it
I
look like an authentic cabinet, or did it
No,
look
it
like?
didn't. It didn't look like it was in. It looked like, I think, from what I can recall, it was stuck in like a cabaret machine. It was not a huge universal cab like you
This would be a
associate with
great game for a
Ladybug.
cabaret, though. To
Oh
be
yeah,
fair,
absolutely.
that'd
Yeah,
be a lot of fun to have.
yeah, yeah. So anyway, that is the arcade version of Do Run Run. But we're here not only to celebrate that, but also talk about the Amiga version of Do Run Run. So let's get into it.
Sure. So the Amiga version of Do Run Run. It's funny. I just covered this a few months ago on the Atari ST show, so I was actually kind of licking my chops to see how the Amiga version held up. This game came out like a lot later on the Amiga than, of course, the arcade. You're talking there's a 6-year gap. It came out in '90, same year as the Atari ST version. And believe it or not, the MSX got a version of this, which I've never tried, but we should try that one sometime in
Yeah,
1988. That'd be
might be
fun to
good.
try. This was much like the ST version. This was published by Electrocoin Software. Electrocoin only did one other game on the Amiga called Time Soldier. The graphics on this, or the coding on this, was done by a fellow named Martin J. Beisch. He was responsible for a lot of games I never heard of, except for a couple. He did the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles coin-op version that came out on the Amiga, Exelon, Cave Mania, Battlebound, Hellraisers. That sounds pretty good, Boat. The graphics were done by Gary P. Felix, who also worked on Exelon, Future Sport, Hellraisers, and Hyperdome. The music was done by a guy I don't think we've ever talked about, not enough, because he did a lot of music, was a guy named Wally Beeben. He did the music for Elite. Here's one of his favorite things to do: music for Winter Games Challenge, and he also did the Summer and Winter Olympiad '88 games. Did the music for those, and Superman and Pools of Radiance. So there's a throwback. We haven't
Pretty
talked about that one for
wide
a while.
difference of games there. You got
Yeah.
sports, you got RPGs, everything.
This, of course, was a one-disc joint ECS-OCS, 1 or 2 players, and this would cost you, Boat, in 1990, £19, 95p. I read a few reviews of this game where that price point was annoying to some of these people. It's funny to read these old magazine reviews because they refer to the original arcade version of Do Run as an ancient arcade game from
Yeah.
6 years past. It's
Yeah.
ancient.
Yeah,
So
it's
ancient,
ancient.
Boat. And this game is plays pretty much like its arcade brother, in that you do it's the exact same game with a few. Well, it's funny, there are build extra things that you would know better than me what these extra things were, Bode. But it's the exact same gimmick. However, you do get an odd addition, which is you get a side graphic that runs up and down the side of the screen, sort of like you would play at the arcade, and this is like the side art. It's a picture of Mr. Do, and it says Do Run Run, big logo, and it takes up the whole side of the screen, which is an odd addition. We'll get more into that. I couldn't find any options on this,
No.
except for 1 or 2 players.
Then you're in.
I noticed that the sound, this game is very tricky because it's all music with no sound effects until you get killed. Then they sort of play some sound effects, and then you're back into the music. Now, it seems to me, it's been a little while since I did the Atari one, but it seems like it had both. But I could be wrong. But I was surprised that this didn't have sound effects and music. And that's what I was looking for an option for. You're a great hand at this game, and I've always been terrible at this game. And so this week I was like, I'm gonna really give this a shot. Having just played on the Atari, I wasn't completely non-fresh coming into it. I guess what I'm saying. And this game really is a strange, abstract game. And it makes you have to get comfortable with things you would normally never want to get comfortable with in a game. For example, you have to get comfortable being directly beside your enemy. You have to be comfortable with racing your enemy. You have to be comfortable with making maneuvers when certain death is coming straight at you. You've got to be careful to not kill yourself, which you can do quite easily in this game. Much like in the original Mr. Do, when you use your do ball, your clown ball, whatever it's called, you lose it for a period of time. One of the things I liked about this game that is the fact that, like, when you don't have the ball, your guy's carrying, like, I don't know if that's like a jester's wand or what that or what it is, but you do know it's very visually apparent when the ball is back in your hand, which I like because it's not always that way in Mr. Do. You can't always tell, and this the ball is big and bright, and you can tell a lot better, which I like that. Like Bo said, there are so many different ways to play this game, and I tried them all. You can play this game to score points, and to do that, you have to do your ring around an area, and every time you do that, that area it upgrades whatever the fruit is. So, like Boat said, from the dot to the cherries, to what's it, the lemons, and then the lemons go into like pineapples, like what it is, and when you do that, you'll get, instead of getting like say 1 point or 10 points per thing, it'll go up. It'll go up to 100 points per thing or 500 points per thing, and you can really crank your score up that way. There's also the Mr. Do element from the rocks in the first game. Instead of rocks, you have logs, and so when you get like, I think if you get all the enemies, you get up to 3,000 points for the last enemy so you get a goodly amount of points. But you can play that way, and that works okay. And I want to get your thoughts on my play ideas here in a minute because you're so much better at this than me. So I tried point pressing. The problem with that is the longer you screw around, the more deadly the enemies get because they evolve, right? Also, Boat mentioned that sometimes the letters will come out an extra, and you can grab them. But the problem is if you do that, the letter and his buddies come down. And then you've got more bad guys on the screen you've got to contend with. So believe it or not, and this is a first for me, most of the times I avoided letters at all costs just to keep the amount of monsters on the screen because there were so many of them. Another thing you can do is just try to kill your enemies. It sounds easy, and the enemies aren't what I would call geniuses, but they do follow you in a fairly cunning way. And so there are multiples of them. And the snakes are a real problem because they can move so quickly. And the fact that when you shoot them, if they're in that fireball mode, the ball doesn't work, that sucks. That makes them real difficult to deal with. I'll try to take them out as quickly as possible, but they're tough to deal with. So you could kill all the enemies, and you could do it that way. I tried that too. And then lastly, you can just go and try to get all the dots. But that ain't happening for me. That was the hardest way to go. So eventually, I tried to settle on a hybrid of all three of these strategies to do as well as I could. But it's a tough game for me because it's like a borderless Pac-Man, basically. It's just everything runs amok, and it's real. You have to get your mind in a different way of playing. It's not a bad thing. In fact, I enjoyed this week more than I've ever enjoyed playing Do Run Run because after playing this for a couple hours, I felt like I was at least getting a knack for it in some way. I will say, this game has the distinction, and I know the arcade game's the same way. This has the most complex and irritating high score entry in the history of video games because it just puts you play the high score game table, and you have to run across the letter to put in the score. But if you can run anywhere. It's just like the game. There's no borders, and so it was perplexing as hell the first time I did it. And every time you do it, you're almost always going to accidentally run across the wrong letter. Then you've got to run down and run across rub to put the. Did you ever have any trouble with the high score table?
Yeah, I mean, listen, I think these are kind of cool. They're
It's different.
I think Miner 2049er has the same sort of entry system.
Sort of, yeah.
And I just think it's a fun little mini game after you play the game. And so it's fine. I didn't find it irritating. I found it endearing.
how did you find the controls in the whole? I mean, let's go back up because I've went on and on about me playing, but you're really the expert in the arcade game. How did this feel to you? How did it play, and how closely did it resemble what you expect to get from the arcade machine, Bode?
Well, like you said, this is one of the few games that I really feel confident about talking about, my strategy and talking about it in an intelligent way. I think that you discovered the strategy is trying to do a little bit of everything. What I always try and do is whenever I first start playing, the enemies are usually pretty well clumped together or they will clump close to you. So I locate the nearest log and I try and kill as many of the enemies as possible with that first log. Then I try and make a full loop around the stage to upgrade the dots to cherries. Um, and then after I do that, then I concentrate on finding an area where I can make the ball whip back and forth a couple times so I can get 3,000 points per enemy killed. And then while that ball is whipping back and forth, I'm making smaller circles to upgrade, 8 or 10 of the dots up to the pineapples as fast as I can. Because if you really want to get a high score in this game, it's all done with collecting as many pineapples as possible and getting as many 3,000 point kills as possible. So that's the way that I play it. I believe on your main machine in the arcade, unless the scores have been reset, which they probably have been, I had the highest score that I've ever gotten in my life, but that was playing in Brent's basement back when the main machine was there. So it's been a while, but that is the single best game I've ever had in my life. Um, the Amiga version of this game, uh, the enemies behave the same way. The game plays slower and the controls are not as tight. So like you said, this is a game where you have to be really comfortable with being right next to an enemy a lot of the time and hit them, smack them in the face with the ball or rolling that log down beside them just in case. And the biggest problem that I have with this game is the hitbox in the sprite area surrounding the log because your character is drawn against the log in a really weird way and you're not really sure where you are in relation to the log, and the log is a big part of a high score strategy because you can't, like you said, there's a million billion enemies in this game, and because you always want to try and collect the extra whenever it pops up, and the thing is you let all the baddies come out, you wait for them to go by you, and then you smack the letter piece and that kills all the baddies above it. So there's a strategy for that too. But if you let too many enemies, like if you don't kill any of the normal enemies on the screen and then you unleash the extra characters, you're going to be overwhelmed. So like I said,
Yeah.
killing the majority of the enemies with that first log, letting them congregate, if you want to get down to where you have like one snake and one mollusk and then the extra enemies and then work your way from there. So that's the biggest problem that I had with the game is that the log animation, the sprite itself, and the mechanics of that is not the same as the arcade. The rest of the game, I have no problems with dealing with a slower game. I have no problems with the music being slightly different, although the second stage music is a lot like the first stage music in the arcade, and then the first stage music is just something totally original, and there's just two tracks. But I thought the music was fine. This is not a game where I really missed the sound effects. The sound effects, of course, are present in the arcade game, but it wasn't something that I was totally missing. So I think this is an okay port. I think that the whole thing with the big Mr. Do on the side of the screen is essentially you have a maximum width. The board, when they're drawing the board out on the screen, you've got a maximum amount of width that you can use. And then you've got this extra space. And so you could either draw the screen in the middle of the screen and just have two black bars on either side, or you can do what they did, which is shift everything to the left and then put that Mr. Do graphic there. I don't know which one is better. I think that the big graphic on the right is sort of a hallmark of European game design. So people weren't exactly not expecting seeing that. So, but it's not something. It's not like Return of the Jedi that we played where that physically gets in the way of your game space. Like the board is drawn to the same proportions that it is in the arcade machine.
It's funny. I was just thinking that what are the odds that in 2 successive weeks we would play games where you kill your enemy with a log, and but
That is
we
weird.
somehow
Yeah.
pulled it off. I've made a little comparison here that we could talk about. and I took out the side thing to give you an idea of what it would look like. But I hate the side thing. But I also, I mean, I don't know. I don't know if there was a way around it, like you said. But I would have preferred the board to take up the whole screen, if I'm honest. But without it, if you look at it stretched out, like I've got it here, it looks solid. It looks. I mean, it's just as colorful and bright. They did a good job with the way it looks. Yeah, you're right. I don't think the controls are as tight either. It definitely is slower, but slower is not a for me. I did way better at the Amiga version and the Atari ST versions than I did in the arcade. A lot better because the arcade version is even more frantic. With the speed of it, I mean, it really, I'd say it runs probably 20% quicker,
Hmm.
and that's 20% quicker than I can handle it. This is a game, I could see why this game didn't do great. I mean, in the echelon, in the pantheon of Mr. Do games, to me, this game's a solid number 3, behind Mr. Do and Mr. Do's Castle. But that's not an insult. I just think this game is, of those 3, and the 4th one is insane too. But this one requires you to really change your mindset on how to play games. You really have so many options that and the fact that you've got so much freedom. I think there's a something that happened in the 80s, the mid 80s with these games, and it was how much freedom is too much freedom. And I think this is the example of that in terms of making money. I think people prefer a maze. They prefer to have limitations of where they can go because it makes you feel, well, you are safer. But it does limit what you could do in terms of the gameplay. The guys who put this together, they were thinking a whole different level. And they were talking about, this is the exact opposite, the exact same as Zookeeper. In Zookeeper, it's a game where you point press with big jumps, right?
Hmm.
But literally, you could do nothing else. That's how you get the points. And this, you point press with a myriad of different strategies. It's insane. You both get to the same point, which is point pressing, but you get there through 2 wildly different ways. That doesn't mean one game's good or one game's bad. It's just a different way of doing it. The more I play Mr. Do, though, the more I enjoy it. Or Mr. Do's Do Run Run. The more I play it, the more I enjoy it because it lets you try. Every game I play, I try a different way to play it, and there aren't very many games where you can say that.
Yeah, yeah.
And so
You're
that
exactly
makes it
right.
more fun.
Yeah.
And then the fact that they put all the usual Do tropes in here, you've got your extra. When you spell extra, there's a little cut scene where you get the extra man, which is cute. You've got the diamond that shows up, which you're used to. You've got the fruits that you collect. You've got the ball. You've got all the stuff you would expect in a Mr. Do game. But so they've made it comfortable in that way, but otherwise it's bonkers. So I've somehow gained I guess you'd be happy. I've gained a grudging respect for this game over the years of me and you playing it, and I think they did a pretty good job on the Amiga version. Like I said, with the exception of the fact that they had to stick in that thing. And I will say this about the side art that they put on: it's well done.
Hmm.
It looks nice. I'm sure it looked good on the back of the box.
Yeah.
When you put it back there, which I'm sure that's part of it. But I mean, I think overall, if you're looking at conversions, I think this is a real good job.
Yeah, I agree.
And I think this is a game that the listeners probably like, Mr. Do Run Around, I'm playing that. Sit down and play it. Well, don't give it a shot. This might end up being one of your favorites, just like King of Balloon and some of these others we've stumbled across. Like, you don't think it's going to be fun, and then you sit down and you play it, and you're like, wait a minute, I'm getting it now. And I think this is one of those games. Did we get any sweet Discord action on this? But anybody have the guts to try it?
No, because since we're taping these so far ahead, I didn't even give people the option. The only
don't worry,
opinions that matters on this one are ours.
I've got options here, and the options are my good buddies over at Lemon.
Like I said, but ours and the rest of and the rest of the world.
Lemon, Lore did not score this, but Lemons gave this a 6.58. I can see why. And I've read a lot of these reviews. A lot of people just don't understand or like.
I mean, the people at
game.
Lemon, these are the people that say that Rainbow Islands is the epitome of arcade games.
Well,
And you can
people love that game.
there's no convincing those people that a game as deep as Do Run Run can be as fulfilling.
Well, listen, it is what it is. I think a lot of people. Hey, listen, I number myself amongst them. They wrote this game off unfairly, and I'm here to set the record straight. I looked at some magazine ratings. Just got a few. The Joker chimed in, Boat, in November of '90. If you think about it now, you're talking 6 full years with a 58% in their weird Joker rating. Dator Magazine gave this an 8 out of 10. They liked it. Amiga Action had a look at this in October of '90, and they gave it a 65%. And Amiga Power chimed in '91, May of '91. And I read this review, and they weren't mean to it, but they thought it was overpriced, and they thought it was too old, and they gave it a 50% vote.
Yeah, well, I mean, I get the argument that charging 20 pounds for an old arcade game in the exciting times of the early 90s was a bit much. And this what makes these reviews difficult to gauge, because are you rating the game on the price, or are you rating the game on how well it reflects the original arcade game, or are you rating it on something else? So magazine reviews are reviews. You always got to take them with a grain of salt.
You know, just because I'm interested, if you were going to price this in 90, where would you have set? Where would you put this in pounds? Where would you put?
I would have made this a mid-price game. This is definitely not a budget release.
Yeah,
but I would have probably cut that MSRP in half, £9.99.
I would agree with you, and the thing is, if it was crappily done, you could even make it lower. But this is quality enough where I think a tenner is not off the table. Yeah. Lastly, Boat, I had a look on eBay, Boat, one of these days. And I did find one of these for sale in the great northern friend of ours up in Canada. Someone was trying to sell one for $123 or best offer. No offers thus far. And I saw that one last month did not sell in the UK. They were trying to get $94 US dollars. It's a little much, Boat, for that one. So, any final thoughts on the Do Run Run?
This is, like I said, this is my favorite arcade game of all time. It's like you said, it's different than Mr. Do. It's definitely different than Mr. Do's Castle. Mr. Do's Castle is not even a Mr. Do game. It's a totally different kind of game that has the clown in it. And then you've got Wild Ride, which is just like Castle is a totally different game. This is the most direct sequel to Mr. Do, but whether it goes too far outside of your comfort zone for the reasons you so well mentioned in terms of player freedom, etc., is up for you to decide. But if you haven't given this one a shot, please try it out on MAME or try the Amiga version.
Are you a sketchy tech? Do you have the right tools for the job? Have there been incidents? Next time, don't try to fix it yourself. Send your broken Amiga to Retro Rewind. Get a full diagnostic, a reasonable estimate, and the peace of mind knowing that your machine is in the hands of real technicians with decades of experience and cutting-edge repair equipment. Save 10% off your repair with the promo code Amigos10. Thank you to RetroRewind.ca for supporting this episode.
All right, Aaron, what do we got coming up next week on the Summer of Arcade?
Let's find out, Boater. Super Bagman. Super Bagman, Boat, next week.
The Big F coming to town.
Big F. That's what I rate in that game. Big F.
All right. As always, if you like the show and you want to support us, patreon.com/Amigos podcast. We will see you next week. And until then, adios.
Adios.
Amigos is made possible by contributions from listeners like you. Patreon supporters help choose the games we play, receive exclusive magnets, and get access to the Amigos Retro Gaming Discord server. Visit patreon.com/Amigos podcast if you'd like to support the show and join our community.